Today on the Momentum Sports Podcast, I'm joined by Chip Paucek, co-founder and co-CEO of Pro Athlete Community, otherwise known as PAC. Chip is a seasoned entrepreneur with a remarkable track record from co-founding 2U and scaling it into one of the world's leading online education companies to leading ventures like SmarterVille and Cerebellum. Today, he's applying those lessons to help current and former professional athletes build lasting success off the field. Under his leadership, PAC has grown rapidly, recently closing a successful Series A round, and we'll talk more about the extension of that round with Chip, and is now home to hundreds of athletes across multiple sports. We'll dive into Chip's journey, the mission behind PAC, and what's next for this growing community. Awesome. Well, Chip, thank you for joining us today. Your intro is quite impressive. The career you've had to this point is also quite impressive, but from my own personal experience as an athlete, I am really, really interested in what you are building today, what you've been building, and what we'll continue to build in the future. But before we get into PAC, I'm always interested in the entrepreneurial journey. I've been an entrepreneur myself. It's a challenging road. It's a difficult road. Sometimes it's a lonely road. I'm curious whether it was in childhood and adolescence or in your time at university, what were the things that drove you in the entrepreneurial direction, and why have you continued to kind of stay in that lane?
Well, there are days I wonder why I stayed in that lane. It's startups are hard. They're much harder than people think. And this is not me crediting myself. I just think every entrepreneur, every startup comes close to death, normally multiple times. And everything's a bit harder than you think it's going to be. So, when you're building a startup, you don't get it all right. And I honestly think a big key to the success is your speed to be able to course correct. And, and also startups, if you do too much at once, everything's hard. So if you're piling on too many things inside the same startup, it gets really difficult to actually execute. And ultimately execution is the key. So, I love entrepreneurship. My dad was an entrepreneur, and when I got to college, my parents are amazing people, but I didn't have a ton of resources when I got to college. I got a Pell Grant to attend, and when I arrived in DC, I'd never seen snow, didn't own a winter coat, and next thing you know, I'm 4 blocks from the White House, and it completely changed my life. I ended up getting very passionate about education. So my story related to entrepreneurship is much more related to the why rather than the what. I wasn't the guy who was like, I need to be my own boss, or, I want to put my own shingle up and I want to own something. That wasn't me. I just got passionate about solving a problem and started a company right out of college. I worked briefly for a US senator. That ends up being relevant because she became one of my first investors in the company. When I quit, I'll never forget, when I quit the job, I'd gotten to know her well. And when I quit, I gave her a business plan because I was very nervous. I'd really never quit a job before, and I was very nervous. And the next day I came in and there was a Senate envelope. And when I opened it up, there was a check. And incredible moment for me. Still one of the coolest moments in my life, honestly, because that moment, that confidence moment for me was big. So I produced a video series that turned into a PBS television show, and we were just captivated by the concept. And it was called Standard Deviance. It was middle school, high school, college courses taught by comedians. Really neat. The show did pretty well. The business model was hard because you basically put it on TV and you sell stuff. We sold like 5 million DVDs for what it's worth. So we sold a lot of, we sold a lot of product. The funny thing about Standard Deviance is a bunch of famous people were in the show, and, they weren't famous at the time. So, it was the first show for TJ Miller, Mike Birbiglia, Kerry Washington, so there was some interesting when you go back and look at it. But so my journey just was really much more about solving a problem. And honestly, if you carry through the rest of my career, my startups are typically because I saw something that I think really needed to be addressed and people weren't addressing it. And that does certainly lead to PAC. The only place in my career where I actually didn't start it was either I ran that senator's reelection campaign in 2004. So I did have a moment in time where I took a break from entrepreneurship. But the funny thing about a Senate campaign, it's a startup, Kyle. Like,
sure.
The funniest thing about it is the startup that has this crescendo and then it's over. there's really nothing. There's a reason people get hooked on politics and on campaigns. Is like, as a business, they're fascinating. But and then I ran Hooked on Phonics for 4 years. So Hooked on Phonics, I was brought in to create a consumer products company in education at a big public education company. And instead of creating one, we found a great brand that was failing. The brand was incredible, but the business behind it was failing. And we bought that and we took it out to retail. And so, but the one that changed my life, honestly, I was 37 with 2 kids. I started a company called 2U. The world was not doing, elite schools were not doing online education. And sounds crazy now post-COVID, because obviously everybody is, but they weren't doing it at all. And our solution would not only help them launch, but actually help them build, maintain, market their online programs. And it did really well. So we got it to about $1 billion in revenue. I mean, just like anything else, there's a longer story there of the trials and tribulations related to that company. But, we took it public, and I was a public CEO for literally 10 years before I did 38 public earnings calls. Yeah. So I've done some stuff, but
You have. What an incredible journey. Obviously, to take something from a startup to, to a public offering for an entrepreneur, that's often the dream, right? And to carry that public company forward, not an easy task, certainly not an easy task as a CEO. And obviously, something that was necessary and needed and took off because of that. Today you're the CEO, co-CEO, co-founder of PAC, Professional Athlete Community. These things don't happen by chance, right? I'm curious, did you learn about PAC? Did the ideation start when you were with 2U? How did you get from 2U to PAC today?
So Kyle, you mentioned that, things happen by chance. And what's kind of crazy about PAC is you can argue it happened by chance. But networking is one of the core principles that we teach in the curriculum at PAC. And pro athletes in general think that they're the only ones that find it stressful, and they don't realize everybody finds it stressful. But it's a learned skill. You can get good at it, and if you get good at it, one conversation can change your life. You never know when it's going to happen. You just have to be open to it. And so the crazy thing about PAC is that's how it started. I was in my seats at a Miami Dolphins game. When we IPO'd my company, my wife, Gabby, was like, look, we're not going to change our life in any meaningful way except one thing. We're going to buy these crazy ass seats in the end zone at Hard Rock because you love football so much. And so we did that. They had just remodeled the stadium, and my seats are on the field. I don't tell you this story to talk about my bougie seats. Like, the reality is this is how PAC starts. The early warm-up period. I am the football lunatic that is in the seats.
Yeah, you're the guy there. Like, you must be there like super early before the game in those seats.
I love it. It's like my happy place. And sitting in my seat right when the warm up starts, and the pregame warm up period, players can do whatever they want before they put their uniform on, and then they warm up in a position group. And so some players don't even come out of the locker room, but a bunch do. And a player would walk the field every game, and I'm like one of the only people in the stadium, and he would stop and chat with me. And it turned into a real relationship over like 4 or 5 games. I end up inviting him to dinner. He ends up getting really involved in my company. So that's how PAC starts. He introduces me to my co-founder. My co-founder is an amazing person, Caleb Thornhill. Caleb was a Michigan State linebacker, very successful collegiate player. And when he was done playing for Michigan State, he actually got into player development in the NFL, went from the Lions to the Dolphins. And while he was running player development for the Dolphins, he convinced the team to begin investing in the guys in the offseason. So they were running these programs. They were called the Miami Dolphins Business Combine, a play off the NFL Combine. And it was like a week on real estate, a week on startups, a week on investing, whatever might fancy the player, because Caleb was a big believer in the notion of exposure breeding expansion. And, just giving these guys the ability to see a path for their post-playing careers, because unfortunately the story of the former professional player is often very negative in a way that people tend to think like 30 for 30 broke. Oh, these guys spend all their money poorly. No, that's sure that happens, and financial literacy is part of PAC, but it's much more profound than that. They have a very challenging setup and a ton of scrutiny. They're very young. And then the world tells them, if you do anything but football, you're not serious. Like, they have to be worried about being cut because they're doing something outside of the game. And then, by the way, not just because of injury, even if they're successful and they play into their 30s, when the world's done with them in a rather abrupt, negative way when they're done playing. And a lot of people go to a dark place, and it's totally preventable. So Caleb had identified this, and he was running these programs. Jermon Bushrod, the O-lineman, is the player I mentioned who networked with me. He ends up introducing me to Caleb. We hit it off, and the rest is history, honestly. Caleb asked me to come do one with him once he learned what 2U did. My company, we built large-scale, high-quality education, community, like everything that's relevant to PAC. And so I took a week off work and we built one together for the players. We had a Shark Tank. It was awesome. I went back to my public company life. I thought, like, I just had one of the funnest experiences of my career, honestly. I kind of everything I care about wrapped into one. But I went back to running my public company, and I get a call from Caleb a week later, and he's like, bro, that was the best thing. It was so good. He's like, I got to ask you this. I know it's crazy. You run a big company you started, but I need to figure out how to do this for real. We need to change the narrative of the former pro athlete. To do that, I need to do it as a real company. Would you consider doing it with me? And, once again, my wife and I have been together a long time. Our anniversary is coming up, 29 years. So
Wow. Congratulations.
Thanks. And so she was like, Chip, you got to do it. This is everything you care about wrapped into one. So said, screw it. And we launched. And so PAC is like YPO for pro athletes.
Got it. When did you guys launch officially? So we have a
was
timeline here.
That was 2022, late 2022.
Okay. So you've been in business for about 3 years.
Right.
I'm curious, obviously Caleb had identified, elements that were a challenge for these athletes. I kind of have my own personal experience, which is why I love what you guys have built and continue to build in my transition out of UCF. I didn't play professionally in the States, but as I realized that my real playing days were over, as I considered them, everybody kept telling me, you're set up perfect to just go be normal. And that never felt like I was normal. I always felt like I was missing something. We kind of use the word identity, right, to try and frame something that we've lost. But I also started to mentor student athletes about 6 years later, graduating from UCF, and they all kind of had what I would describe as this cycle of depression. And none of them really had the language to articulate, what they were experiencing. And so that set me down a journey of trying to do something about it. And co-founded Nestry with Dr. Tommy Shavers and one of your advisory board or board members, Julius Thomas. And it really just, opened the door for me to understand, like, it doesn't matter really high school, college, professional, like there are challenges that exist in this transition out. We obviously took a neuroscience approach to try and create solutions, but there's so much more to that that's needed. So I'm curious today, if you just kind of give a high level of PAC, a professional athlete joins, I'm assuming male and female professional athletes have the opportunity to join, which I think is a really important thing. What is the overall experience that an athlete can expect by joining PAC? What does the programming look like? What are the extra incentives that are provided? If you can lay that out for me, that'd be great.
So I would start with three things that we talk about a lot to our players is invest in yourself, take time to invest in yourself. And obviously by joining PAC, you are investing in yourself. And I don't mean the dollars, I mean the time and the focus on yourself. Cultivate meaningful relationships. If you are investing in yourself and you cultivate meaningful relationships, you will elevate your life and those around you. Because by the way, this ends up being a family story very often. The transition out of sports is difficult, not just on the player, but on the family that is around the player. So we believe we have the best athlete transition program in the world. We don't use that tagline because we can't validate it with, from an external marketing standpoint, but we've had 650 pros go through it. It's got a net promoter score of 96. which is kind of crazy. So
Wow.
if you're not familiar with Net Promoter, it's the best consumer satisfaction measure. It's a scale of 100 to negative 100. So it's a 200-point scale. And you're effectively subtracting your detractors from your promoters to get to this score. Without that technical definition, I can tell you at 2U, anything above 50 was considered world-class. Most of our programs at 2U were 50 or above. 96 is off the charts. It's very, very strongly rated by the players that go through it. And more importantly, the outcomes of the people that come out of it in terms of their own self-reported distinction about how they are doing in terms of where they're going to go, what they wanted to accomplish coming in, how confident they feel coming out, and then the job outcomes that are coming out of this, like the actual placement of people into meaningful roles, the placement of people into meaningful deals, because some people are going to come out with resources and they need to put that to work in a good way. So Next Chapter U, I think the underappreciated part of it from an external standpoint is the personal coaching. Personal coaching is a core part. So like leadership coaching,
Sure.
people ask me like, what do you cover? Well, like if you've never done a core values exercise, it's incredibly powerful. If you can nail your core values and be able to speak about your core values as a person, it's incredibly powerful for the player. And most folks have not done this kind of exercise before. So, my 4 core values are authenticity, love, fun, and drive. And I know that because I went through this exercise. And it doesn't mean that mine, yours are going to be very different, Kyle. Everybody's got different things they bring to the table. But knowing what you bring to the table and getting confident in what you bring into the table. And I guess that's where the story of pros is really notable, is like, when you said that you were lacking something, if you are good enough to do what you did, you think about the players that have gone through our program, Devin McCourty, Jason McCourty, Teron Armstead, and Dominican Sue, like these are the peak of the NFL. And if you've made it to that level, you were not only the best athlete in your high school, you were the best athlete in your hometown. The percentages are so low. And you got really, really focused on that one thing, whether it's basketball, baseball, MMA, whatever it is. And the world wanted you to be very focused on it. But the reality is you didn't win because of your athletic ability. You won because a whole variety of traits, drive, teamwork, resilience, rigor, like there's a bunch of things that each one of these pros has in them that allowed them to win. Very rarely is it athletic ability. Athletic ability is kind of table stakes. It's your ability to be part of a team. It's your ability to drive a team. It's your ability to be a leader. It's your ability to get hit and get back up again. Like these are all things that most people just don't have. So our job is to help you figure out how to do that in a new context. So one of the things I'm really proud of is Next Chapter U, not only do you do the heart and the head work to get the man or the woman right, you do it with a community of peers that you can totally relate to. That's a big part of it. Like, YPO for founder CEOs has something that's pretty special called YPO Forum, where, you get to interact with a fellow founder or fellow CEO in a way that is really difficult to do in your normal life because CEOs are dealing with a very discrete set of things. And so the people that are in YPO typically stay in YPO for a long time because of Forum. So we offer something very similar called Locker Room. But this idea of a new locker room for your long-term future also you need exposure to new things where you can apply that grit, rigor, drive, resilience to something else. And so we have a lot of former pros that come in and help them get their head right, including, our shared, we both could sit here and talk poetically about Julius Thomas for a long time. What an incredible guy.
Yeah, incredible.
But the exposure to those new things with a group of people that are not there to take your money, take advantage of you, you can be vulnerable. Like, you have to be uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And to do that, you need a good group of people around you. And I think, honestly, we've proven, starting with our, original core of players, that we're going to do it in a way that is good for the man or the woman, and that we're going to do it true to the brand, which means we're not there to be the other thing that's trying to get in your pocket and blah, 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 so, and it's really working. And so what's happening now is, we've done very little marketing, and the players are all referring players. And so in the last 6 weeks, we've gone from 650 pros to 1,500. So it's really starting to, pick up speed. There are 770,000 pro athletes on planet Earth. About half of those speak English.
300,000. I remember that one stuck in the back of my mind from previous conversations.
So, we think this will end up being tens of thousands of people. And, we do think it's a worldwide problem. We think it's across all sport. It's not just, football or basketball. We've got pro jockeys, we've got pro golfers, we've got pro fighters, Olympians. The Olympics is a fascinating case because they are squarely focused on, whether it's rowing or running or snowboarding, whatever it is, winter, summer. And by definition, during that period, they weren't making money. So when they get done, they need to apply that skill set to a very different context. So it's needed across all sports. And, we think this can really change the world if we do it right.
Let's double click there a little bit. You mentioned the multiple sports. I mentioned men and women. Like, I'm curious, how do you take people from very different environments and build programming around, people that come from very different places that provides value? Is there kind of like a true north or kind of a middle line that you go, hey, this programming can apply to anybody that's coming to it as long as they're a former or current professional athlete?
Yeah, it's funny. We were really worried about that in the early period. We weren't sure. There's a bunch of things we weren't sure of. Could we put the players in the same room, whether it's virtual or in person, the proverbial room? Could we put people in the same room that were really, really successful in their sport and therefore made, $100 million with the people that barely made the team? And the answer to that, strong yes. That shared experience, that's great. It was great for us in running the company. We also love the number of times where if you came to one of our big PAC events, you would see when people are arriving, it's just incredible to watch these people reconnect. If you think about any work experience you've had in your career, there were people at each stop of the way that you really bonded with. And very often you don't stay in touch with those people. When you see them again, it's a great experience. Well, this is a very heightened view of that because, you had 80,000 people screaming their name coming out of the tunnel. Like, it's just crazy. Yeah. At first we were only football. And as we gradually expanded, we were not sure how that would go. And we started adding, we added to the NFL events an MMA fighter. We added 3 NHL players. We added some baseball players. We added some basketball players, golfers. And the more we added, the more we realized that this was not a concern. Putting them together, they find it all fascinating. What's also kind of funny is just the NFL guys all love hoop. They all love golf. They all love MMA. Not all of them, but so you end up also creating this wonderful atmosphere of people sort of going cross sport in a way that's really cool. So that's been a win. It's not been hard to do. I think that throughput, if you think about how difficult it would be to become a professional golfer, it's very different. You're not getting hit. Yeah. But I mean, it's incredibly isolating. You're an entrepreneur. You're running around the country on your own dime trying to make a cut. It's a really interesting problem set. So the players have mad respect across the sports. We have not found. Now we just started to get into international expansion. We have a PAC chapter forming in Spain. So an NBA player named Victor Claver, who did very well, a Spanish player, but he came to the NBA, played in the NBA for a long time. He's helping us get it set up because he came to our NBA PAC event, and so we're building one there. So we're early days of international expansion. I'm sure as we go to countries where English is not the predominant language, we'll have to work on that. But I did that at 2U, and I think we can do it here.
I've recently connected with some athlete communities here in Germany and in Austria, and you can tell that there's just as much of a desire, to be activated in this way across the globe. And
Yeah,
I think one of the really cool things when you get there will be that cross pollination of the American mindset versus the European mindset. I've been here in Germany for 3 years now, and there's just so many core cultural differences that it seems like an unbelievable learning environment just at a purely cultural level. That opportunity exists once you all continue to expand over here.
agreed.
We have a number of professional athletes that fortunately watch this show, and we're partnered with a handful as well. Can we get into a little bit of kind of the nuts and bolts of the experience, like the actual, programming that exists? I'll kind of throw out off the top of my head what I'm aware of. Number one, you use a platform, that creates unbelievable connectivity and stickiness online where guys and girls can connect. They can talk to you. Basically, if you're in your office at any given point in time, you have a deal flow forum. Our CFO joined that deal flow forum a couple of weeks ago. She really enjoyed that experience. I know that your events are returning next March. Can you kind of lay out for
Sure.
those interested, what that actually looks like?
So the first thing is the digital experience has two components to it. We have a core portal that players become a community member of, and it has the things you would expect from an online portal. It's got an ongoing feed where players are posting various things that are exciting to them or open to them. We're posting events that are coming up. There's actually it's really wonderful to see since we launched the portal. The organic interaction is really good, and probably more importantly, this notion of local activation. Like there's one this weekend in Dallas that we had very little to do with. That is being set up among pro athletes in Dallas, and we have, out of our
That's cool.
1,500, something like 100 of them are in Texas. It's a big number in Texas.
That's
So,
cool.
so the portal is a place for people to interact as we build courses, because there's a whole bunch of courses we're building for the players: AI, real estate. Those will be embedded inside both the app and the portal. So that's coming. And then the second part to the digital experience is a virtual office called Roam, ROAM. This is not our tech. A buddy of mine named Howard Lerman built this company. It's very cool. So it's a virtual headquarters, and PAC has a virtual headquarters where my office is in there. And if I'm in my office and I'm not busy, I leave it open and people can come in. But each player gets, as part of their PAC membership, a Roam office. And so it's starting to get pretty wild in there. So we do a bunch of programming in the live environments, like there's a theater as an example. So, and then there's a bunch of programs that players can take. Some of those programs are virtual. Some of those programs are in person. Our next big in-person event is called PAC Accelerate. It's the end of March. So the last 2 days of March, the first 2 days of April of next year. And, we expect 500 or so pros. It should be very big. It's at the Arizona Grand, so great location. And This is an opportunity for people to come together, do the networking with the broader community of people that are engaged with PAC. So we bring a bunch of brands to play. We bring a ton of CEOs and founders to play at PAC. And, one of the most important things is for people that are interested in networking to further their career. It's a great opportunity because when you aggregate this number of pro athletes, people want to be around. People want to come. So the number of people that we can get to attend that the pros want to meet is not small. It's also a great opportunity for brands to interact with our players. So There's a bunch of group activations like the heart and head work I mentioned that people love doing live. We also make it really fun. So we're good at making it fun. So PAC Accelerate is going to be wild. It'll be by far our biggest, and we're excited about it. And then I mentioned the regional activations. So there are, like we're doing a Super Bowl party this year. Like there's various activations for PAC that go beyond the core programming. What you will see over time is you'll see PAC launch a bunch of things, both for the pros, either to further their education, and very often they can tap into a benefit that they use, that they collectively bargained for, or that the league set up. So as an example, if you're an NFL player, you have access to something called the NFL Trust, which was officially set up for former players. And there's a benefit for players where they can get a $5,000 scholarship per year or a $20,000 scholarship for a degree program. And our programs can be paid for by that source. So if somebody wants to take an AI course, they can go get that scholarship to take it. So a bunch of things that we're working on to roll out. And the key is just serving the members with what they need to further their lives. So you mentioned Deal Flow Forum. Some of the ongoing programming, Deal Flow Forum is one of my favorites. So it's an opportunity for a PAC member to present a deal to the rest of the PAC community that either they're directly involved in or they're investing in. And it's more than anything an opportunity for education to take place, whether or not investment happens, for a broad community of people that are always hounded on to invest in things, to come in an environment that's safe, to see a deal that's being presented. And then once the deal's done, Q&A happens, but then the presenting company has to leave, and the forum turns into a discussion between the players and the pro investors that are there. And it just turns into a discussion of what they liked and didn't like, so people can start to see what good is. So it's really educational. That's been real popular. So like the last one we did probably had, 40 or so members on it. But as we roll this out and the community grows, you could imagine that being 500 people over time. So it can be pretty wild.
Yeah, it's really, I love how you've taken that deal flow form and put it in house, right? And really made it, something from the community for the community. I think that's really important. But there's no way to ignore the fact that when you're able to aggregate this amount of professional athletes, 1,600 today, that there are a lot of people that want to provide or get access to that community for various reasons. I'm curious in the CEO seat, like how you think about that the right way. You've got to protect the community. You've got to make it exclusive. But at the same time, there are groups that bring unique, perspectives of the world or opportunities that you do want to open the door to. So how do you, and likely the most difficult seat of all, really think about that maybe more than anything and determine, how that continues to unfold?
Yeah, my COO, Travis Key, he's amazing. He was played for 5 NFL teams as a safety, actually played, was co-captain with Caleb Thornhill, my co-founder at Michigan State. So, goes deep into sports, but also deep into football, but then became an engineer, and he's an amazing COO. But he, at every event we run, either virtual or in person, always ends up being the person delivering the message of, the sanctity of the community is really important. Everybody is here to be part of a community, and that is both, it's a responsibility to the company to ensure that it's being done the right way, but it's also a responsibility of the member. So if the member sees something they don't like, we need to know about it. We want to know, there's no pitching allowed. You're not allowed to, if somebody's coming in as a mentor, if somebody's coming in as a presenter, we have people come in whose core business is to serve the athletes in some manner. And that's great. There's no problem with that. But what are you doing when you're attending a PAC event or you're doing something virtually? You're educating. And if that education process ultimately turns into somebody wanting to work with you, that's great. We love good people being available to the community, but that's not what it can be at the start. You can't be pitching people overtly. That's something that most athletes would tell you when they go to events that's really difficult for them, is everybody's always trying to sell them something. And that's not what this is about. So like Deal Flow Forum, great example, like a bunch of investments occurred because of Deal Flow Forum, but it's really not the point. The point is for the players to experience, most people aren't venture capital. Like, how would a venture capitalist look at a deal? And hearing what a venture capitalist is going to say about a deal. I mean, you think about with either Momentous or Magnolia, like your evaluation process for doing a real estate deal is quite complicated, right? It's like, so what does that look like? Well, if you can experience it, you can learn from it. And so that whole exposure breeds expansion applies across the board. we do give people opportunities for their businesses to be more formally presented in the community. So there's a section of the portal where there's a business directory. And of course, we want business interaction between the players and between the players and the mentors. But just to be clear, we've actually kicked people out of events because we told them that this is not an opportunity for you to come and pitch your wares. And that's exactly what they did. And we're just not going to play that way. So,
Yep.
Is that awkward? Yeah, because it's happened a couple of times. And I'm sure those people don't think incredibly positive thoughts about us, but whatever, it's our job. So the key here is this is a community first and foremost. And the C part of PAC is the most important. We have to just care for it and manicure it.
Yep.
The good thing is the members really care. So, when members see something they don't like, they're not shy.
I totally understand, fully respect that you guys are protecting it that way. I think that's really, really critical. We do have a number of investors in our audience. We do have a number of entrepreneurs raising capital in our audience. I'm curious if you'd be willing to give some of your just anecdotal experience on your last fundraising round. I know that's going to be extended, and I'll give you a chance to let people know how they can connect with you if there's interest there. But earlier this summer, I guess I saw a lot of press about your successful round with your first target of $7.5 million or something around there. What was the fundraising experience like for you? I'm not sure the last time you went through that experience, having taken
it had been a while
to you public, but what was that experience
like? The
like?
funny thing is, we raised like 120 million in venture capital. 2U was very capital intensive. At the time, there was no Zoom. It was building the programs was hard. Marketing the programs was really expensive. So we had to raise a lot of venture capital. I would like to raise less venture capital in this one, and therefore not dilute the owners of the company as much as I did 2U. But it's funny. Honestly, we did a Series A, and I should have raised more. Now it's obvious to me I could have raised more. I should have raised more. Raising capital, for those that haven't done it, I don't care how hot your company is. It's hard and it's constant and it's a grind. So it doesn't matter. Even to be honest, what was fun about PAC for me is I felt like it's the first time I had a hot deal. 2U was a harder sell. People really like this. You think about it. Our board chairs our board chairs are the McCourty brothers. By the way, and the McCourty brothers are literally two of the best people that I've met in my life, not just my career. They are great. They are smart, thoughtful. They care deeply about the mission of the company, but they work. They put in the work. So they are continually available to the company to help us accomplish our goals. And so, they're great examples of guys. And you look at what they're doing post-playing now. They're on TV all the damn time. They're both those guys. But they're really successful, and I can't wait to see what they continue to do. But so raising money's hard. Most particularly in the era of right now, investors are so obsessed with AI that there's a lot of funding going into AI. I happen to think most of it is justified. I don't really think that AI is a bubble at all. I think it's fundamentally the most important technology since the internet. And
sure,
I think it's only going to get better. And but with that said, the amount of money going in, and it's not at all obvious who's going to win. So, but the venture capital firms in particular are kind of obsessed with AI right now. There is an AI play with PAC, but we're not an AI company. We're a community. Sure. The pivot from live events to a membership has been very positively received. Live events, you can build a good business in live events, but it's harder to drive strong margin, and reoccurring sort of membership is has been received very positively by people. So, but raising money is not easy. It's you're you're talking to a lot of people. And when you go into your pitch, you're doing your pitch, and you got to treat every meeting the same, even though
Yeah.
you could be talking to somebody who won't invest. You could be talking to somebody who might put in a small check, or you could be talking to somebody who might lead the round, and you don't know. So you got to approach every one of them with the same amount of passion. So it's exhausting.
I totally agree. I'm right there with you. As we've transitioned from pure family office to family office plus investment management platform, there's been that bifurcation of focus from allocation to allocation and fundraising. So I totally get it. I'll get you out on this question. As a CEO, yes, you have to sit in the chair and lead the company today, but you're also tasked with helping guide the company and where it's going in the future. So I'm curious, when you think about PAC and 5 or 10 years, what does success look like for you? What are the things that you're most excited about?
Well, I mean, the more athletes we touch, the bigger impact we're going to have. What's so powerful about this audience of people is, when you think about the problem set of PAC, you're often thinking about the downside, how to prevent somebody from going to a dark place, how to lift somebody up out of, a really challenging mental space. The positive side is, if you can superpower this audience, it's pretty remarkable what they can achieve because of who they are and what they've done and what they've accomplished, and the desirability of the world to receive them. So, one example is, I've been thrilled that we've been offered an opportunity to attend the World Government Summit in Dubai. Just one example of how powerful, you've got this really important conference that is really about some of the bigger challenges in the world. And why do they want a PAC panel? Well, it's not just because these are really interesting people. It's like, if you can actually galvanize these people correctly, you can change the world. You really can. It's amazing what great pros can accomplish if they think about it the right way. So, from my standpoint, there's the business success, which of course we would like to continue to grow the company. And, do I think this could be an IPO? I do. I think when I first started, I think people thought, oh, that's a neat idea, but is it really a big company? I actually think this can get pretty big. But the more important thing is galvanizing the community. And I do think this can be, we think it's on its way to the world's most important collection of pro athletes. Like, if you've got if we have 50,000 members, it'll be pretty wild. What we've already had a bunch of opportunities that in the short term we've said no to. I just think the footprint of what is possible, if we keep focusing on the right thing, changing these people's lives, helping them succeed, the company will succeed. So it's going to be a fun ride though while we do it. I can tell you, I'm having a blast. I love my job.
I can feel it.
PAC
feel it. I sense that.
Kyle, you know the term ikigai?
I do.
So for your listeners that aren't aware of it, it's 4 concentric circles. It's a Japanese term, and it's what the world needs, what you're good at, what you can get paid for, and what you love. So if you find where they overlap,
intersect,
that's your ikigai. And I feel like at 54, it's pretty sweet that PAC is my ikigai. So.
Well, listen, it jumped off the screen at me the first time I met you. The second time I met you, I feel it today as well. Or second time I spoke with you. I guess you can only meet somebody once. I know that because of the growth, because of the 800 or so members you've added in the last 6 weeks, there is a desire to continue raising capital. For those that would be interested that are listening now, how can they contact you or get in touch with your team? And then in addition to that, for the athlete that may not be a PAC member today, what is the least path of resistance in finding out more?
So for all of the athletes that are listening, we would love to have you join us. Go to proathletecommunity.com. You can find a very simple application where we verify you're a pro, and then we onboard you into the digital experience. You'll hear directly from one of our former pros who works at PAC that does the member onboarding. So Trey Edmonds, Darius Kilgo, a bunch of folks that, Darius won 2 Super Bowls. So that he'll onboard you into the experience. We would love to have you. And just come join us. It's awesome. That's really what it's all about. For investors, my email is chip@proathletecommunity.com.
Okay.
Chip@proathletecommunity.com. Please just reach out. Would love to talk to you. And Kyle, I
Perfect.
so appreciate you guys giving us the platform here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said from the beginning, once I learned more about PAC and I was seeing it from afar initially, I knew that something like that needed to be in place. I knew that there needed to be a safe space for former athletes to go to learn, to talk about the challenges and talk about the exciting times of their careers and their futures, more importantly, because that's the thing that's always like, what is the future based on my experience? So I'm thankful that you're providing this platform for the athletes. I think it's absolutely needed. You've obviously done a great job of building momentum, growing the company to where it is today, and we're excited to follow it into the future. And it's our pleasure to have had you on today, and I think the audience will really enjoy this. So we will be in touch soon. We'll be having continuing conversations from our end here at Momentous. But thank you, Chip, for joining us and for everything that you're doing for the athlete community, both domestically and in the future globally.